we are in the eyes of terror. And I am the Bunnyman. And Crazy Susie is still laid up in bed, recovering from her back surgery. She should be back with us next month. We are continuing our Irish horror low-budget movie extravaganza. And tonight's movie is Plague Town, 2009. I found this movie on Amazon Prime. The length is 1 hour and 25 minutes. The IMDb score is 4.5 out of 10. The director is David Gregory, and it stars Josslyn DeCrosta, Erica Rhodes, David Lombard, Lindsay Gornison, James Rourke, Catherine McMorrow, Elizabeth Bove, Michael Donaldson, and Kate Aspinwall, and many, many more, which you can find on imdb.com. The synopsis of the film is: an American family visits their Irish roots, accidentally stumble on a horde of bloodthirsty mutant children. Sounds fascinating, doesn't it? Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see. And tonight's beverage is vanilla cream ale from the Black Horse Brewery, Tennessee Ales, brewed by Black Horse Brewery in Knoxville, Tennessee. It is 4.8% alcohol per volume as a 12 fluid ounce can. Bottoms up. You can definitely taste the vanilla, but it almost has like a Reese's taste to it too, like a peanut buttery and a vanilla flavor. It's not bad. I actually quite enjoy it. It's a little heavier because it's a cream ale, which is just sort of fitting for this type of weather. It's still sort of cool right now. It's not quite summer yet, but we can feel the springs in the air. So this might be the last batch of heavier beers, and I'm gonna have to go lighter here in a bit. I hope you are all having a good time listening to us, or to me, and I hope you enjoy this ad, and we'll be right back after that ad. Thank you for listening to this labor of love. We hope you're enjoying this episode and continue to do so. Crazy Susie and I try to bring you a quality podcast. If you wish to help us out, we have a few ways to do so. We have a Patreon with a variety of perks that range from $1 and that goes up to $20. We also have your Redbubble and a Teespring merch store with a slew of shirt designs that range from t-shirts to hoodies, blankets, and pillows. We also do a stream on YouTube and Twitch and a variety of other platforms. That's every other Sunday a month at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please follow us on our Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram to keep up to date on what is going on with the streams, new merch releases, and just to see our daily lives. And finally, you can passively support us by listening to us on Radio Public, a free podcast catcher that pays the creators. We also appreciate all the likes, comments, and subscriptions you have given us. Thank you again, and enjoy the rest of this episode. Welcome back. We are continuing with our movie. It's called Plague Town. So I saw this and I was like, I'm going to watch this. This actually sounds interesting. I was thinking that it had something to do with a plague, which I guess it sort of does in a weird way, I guess. The cover art's sort of catching. I actually like the other one I found online better than what Prime had. But anyway, so let's get into the movie, shall we? The film starts with a woman giving birth, and she refuses to push and actually ties her legs shut with a piece of cloth. And we see a priest basically marching down a road with purpose, and he comes around and to the house and comes in and tells her see how she has nothing to fear, as the townspeople wonder if this was the one. All we get is, could this be the one? Is this the one? So at first you're thinking, is this some sort of like prodigal child that has been foretold by Irish history or something? She reluctantly gives birth, as the best way to put it. I mean, the priest put her at ease, but she still really, you could tell she sort of didn't want to, but unfortunately with babies, they come out. So sometimes, as much as sometimes the mother doesn't want them to, I guess, or the baby, or I'm not quite sure where I'm going with that, to be honest. So after she gives birth, she asks if it's a boy, and we can assume the child is not I don't know, you can tell that the child's not what they're expecting, I guess. And the priest said this is not a child of God, as he pulls a revolver and he begins to pray, and the husband, who is sitting in the corner sort of stoking the fire and off in his own little universe, gets up and knocks out the priest with a log, and the woman's mother cries as the husband proceeds to take the fire poker and insert the fire poker into the back of the priest's head, giving us our first kill. I give it a 4 out of 5. It's pretty brutal since it's the back of the head, and it's pretty graphic. And then, but the priest is not quite done yet, so he tries to put up a little bit more of a fight. The priest rolls over. The husband tries to finish off what he started, and the mother gives him an axe or a hatchet, and he bears that hatchet into the priest's face. And then we get 14 years later. A bus drops off a group of people. They're already annoying. One girl is complaining that they were dropped off in the middle of nowhere, which it's not, wrong. The father tries to find a village that is on the map for reason or anything like that. He doesn't say, oh, I think that, something family. I heard generational stories of. No, they're just like, we need to find the next bus stop. So they get a map, and they have a map with them. So they go to the next town that's on that map. So they go in the general direction through a very large field, it looks like. There's a British bloke that the complaining girl met. And they've only met each other for 3 days. They've only been there for 3 days. And he starts lecturing, the British bloke starts lecturing the family on basically, don't be Americans. You're a representative of your country. Don't be you. Don't be the stereotype of Americans. Which, I guess is a good statement to say to anybody who's traveling out of country. Don't be egotistical. Don't be rude. Try to do basically, when in Rome, do what Romans do type thing. That's what I've always lived by. But the way that he lectures them is, you want to punch him. You really just want to sock him. Because he's very rude and he's being very British. And the way that British have egos too. So, and then he continues to say that, Americans, he's surprised that they left their country and they don't understand, because they're Americans, they don't understand other cultures and blah, blah, blah. Basically, compared to the British are highly civilized. And then there's another girl in the group, and she berates him really smartly. So she's like, you have no right to talk. How, it's just, you think you think you're so smart, but you're really not. Just look at yourself. And then, after they have that, we have B-roll of countryside. And the group is walking and talking and somewhat making out. The blonde-haired and the British guy are making out here and there. as the piano lightly plays in the background. Annette, the smart one, she has dark hair and she's the smart one of the group, realizes after several hours they may be going in the wrong direction. Then they come across a guy digging a strangely rectangular body-like hole. The British bloke tells he tells them again, don't be Americans, and he's got this. And that they need to show some respect. And so he walks up to the guy, and the guy's an older gentleman, and he says, the older guy says, "Are you lost?" And the British guy starts speaking Gaelic, and they sort of crack up and laugh, and then the man goes, "Come with me to a nice dry place for the night," and then they just dismiss it. They're like, "Whatever, yeah, thanks for your invitation, but we got this." Then we see running in some flashbacks of some murdering fun that they had. There's fists in the air, and you hear punching, and little kids laughing as you hear the slicing of flesh. Murder fun. We've all been there when we were kids. Fun time on the playground, murdering Billy, or the janitor, or that one teacher no one liked. The good old times. Next, we see the group, or the family, holed up in a barn, which they are enjoying their lunch. Jessica, the blonde-haired chick that brought the British bloke, complains that the barn smells, and she is cold. And as she's saying that, the camera pans back to reveal a dead, rotting corpse. But nobody else notices that this barn smells oddly like death, or anything like that. But at the same time, when is the last time you've been in a barn and it smelled nice? That's a really good question, because I've never been in a barn that smelled great. Not like roses or anything, unless you're in a rose barn. The girls have a fight, Anita, Jessica, and Molly. We find out that Molly is a new addition to the family, and they are not quite thrilled that her dad had remarried to what looks like a fairly younger Robin. The Brit is absolutely brilliant and a great observer, because Jessica and Robin go off after the fight to start making out. So, the only way to calm somebody down is to take them out in the woods and do things to them. After the fight, and Jessica and Robin come back because, well, we find out Jessica is not ready yet to do things with Robin that Robin wants. They come back to the barn, and the dad's like, "Well, the bus is about to leave in 5 minutes." And so they all sort of run across the rest of the field, and as they got into the road, the bus leaves, and they just missed it. How disappointing. Jessica, 17 minutes in, is already very grating. She does nothing but complain and complain and complain. So the family goes in the woods, and Anita sees something, and Jessica says she is having another breakdown. They come across a abandoned car, and they all get in it for the night because it's warm and night is setting in. At no point anybody's like, "Well, this is really creepy. I wonder why this happened." Because, there's still luggage on top of the car. The car door's unlocked. Just chilling there. And they'll just climb into it. Robbie decides that he is going to go investigate the area, and he disappears. Because they're all cramped in there, and I guess he's just had it, and he's going to be the man of action. And Jessica has a another fight with her family and goes after Robbie. And they start discussing an old fling. Robbie started discussing an old fling he had and how he dumped her because she liked to stare at him. And then Jessica's like, oh, you must be a hard taskmaster. And he's like, oh, I am. And they start things are starting to rev up again. Then you hear an odd cry. Molly and Anita are in the car together. They're just sit there talking, nothing of value. Robin and Jessica come across an occupied hovel. And of course says hello, knock once. And then luckily that door is unlocked. So what do? They just head right on in to investigate. We see a few candles have been lit and no one is in. So Robbie he proposes a quickie with Jessica. And she shoots him down and he gets irritated. And then we go back to the car. And the girls are getting frightened because they're just getting uneasy. Then back to Robbie and Jessica. And Robbie is running away from Jessica, which he disappears in a wide open field. We see Robbie walking all peacocky towards a pale man. And Jessica runs up to him. And they said that they are lost. The pale man says, we, and they tell him about the rest of the family, which is a bad mistake. And then he tells them to come with him. Although they're Irish, it doesn't mean they won't hurt you. And he's like, come with us. Come on. You can come with me. I'll be okay. Nothing will happen. I don't care who you are, even if you're Irish or not. I mean, just randomly to go off with random people you don't know. The pale man urges them to come with him, and Robbie blocks him and tells him to screw off. The pale man pulls out a shotgun and decides to give Robbie a face full of pellets from the shotgun. And the pale man chases after Jessica. The dad heroically springs into action, and Jessica hides from the pale man, which is urging her to come with him so he can take the others. Back at the car, Molly and Anita talk much smack about their dad, or dad/husband. The dad comes across a house and he sees that two girls are in it. One is combing the hair of the other, and then he knocks on the door and then of course enters. And he says he didn't mean to startle them as he walks up into the house. That's not startling. Some guy just randomly walking into your house telling you that I didn't mean to startle you. And he just walks in like he owned the place. He's might as well just took his pants off at that point. As he looks around, one of the girls charges him and sticks him with a piece of glass in the shoulder. He sees the other one and follows her into the room, which is quite brilliant. I always follow girls I've never met into a random room. Well, there was that one time. Bad idea. And that's how I lost a leg. Okay, as he goes in and he walks in, the girls wrap his face with a metal line as they are laughing. And we get kill number 3. They slice off the top of his head, which is unrealistic but interesting. And he didn't even put up a fight. He just sort of was like, oh, crap. There goes half my head. He just lets it happen. And then after that, the girls just go off and play. I give that a 4 out of 5. It sort of reminds me of one of my other favorite bad horror films, Ghost Ship. I felt like that was a homage to Ghost Ship in a weird way. Jessica found herself into a ravine and is hiding in the ravine. Molly and Anita get out of the car, and Molly and Anita are splitting a cigarette, and then they hear her crying, or they hear crying. So they get out of the car to investigate, which is a brilliant act. So then they go. It's just so brilliantly intelligent. Get out of something safe to go investigate something you never heard of. It could be bad. It could be good. Right? Nothing bad ever happens. It's Ireland. It'll be okay. Nothing bad ever happens in Ireland. Then a random woman comes upon Robbie's still body. We find out that he isn't dead. And the old woman helps him up and walks around. We find out her name is Sheila. She's Rosemary's mum, whoever Rosemary is, right? And Jessica is still chilling. And she sees a person run past her, so she has to go chase after him. We find out he isn't a 10. He's more like a West Virginia 5. We are back in the car with Molly, and they turn on the headlights. And I had a question about this. Did they ever try to turn over the engine? I didn't remember if they did or didn't. Obviously, there's power from the battery to turn on the headlights. So I don't ever remember them trying to turn it over. I can't remember. And then she sees nothing, and she goes outside to enjoy another cig by herself. And all of a sudden, children come running after her. She locks the door, and the children beat on it. When one of the older children breaks the window and then drags Molly out. Anita grabs a shard of glass and slices one of the boys. We get kill number 4. Good night, handsome. Anita slices through the older boy's neck as he lazily falls backwards against the car. I give this a 2 out of 5. Then Anita crawls underneath the car and watches as children whip Molly with branches. Which, okay. I know you could go to very expensive spas and get that done. I guess you just need to go to this little village in Ireland and they do it for free in the middle of the night. We get glimpses of this other girl sitting in front of the headlights, but it's really confusing. You don't know if it's Anita or somebody else. It's just it visually didn't make a lot of sense. After that, the girls are done whipping her. After the girls are done whipping Molly, they sit down as the other girl, with excessive skin hanging from her chin, picks up a car rim and hits Molly with it a few times. And you really get the feeling that they don't like non-deformed flesh in the village. And I get a kill 5 out of this, which that's a nice rim. Molly turns over on her stomach, reaches towards Anita, and gets hit on the back of the head with the rim and dies. So this girl just sort of takes his rim and starts hitting her over and over and over again with it, and bleeding from the mouth and stuff like that. And then she bashes the back of her head with this, what looks like to be a plastic rim, and she dies. I give it a 1 out of 5. I don't know if in all honesty, that would not have worked. Then Anita loses it and starts crying. Of course, one of the children find her chilling underneath the car, and the others join in to drag her out from underneath. She sounds like, her crying is just squeaky wheel-like. They drag her out and proceed to whip her with the dreaded branches. So Molly isn't dead and gets into the car and honks the horn, which allows Anita to escape. Which from now we can assume Molly is now dead because rim. The old lady takes Robbie to her dwelling, where he tries to clean up, and all of a sudden he gets really lightheaded, which, I don't know if a face full of buckshot would do that or not, but I could imagine without blood loss. The old lady keeps saying they need to wait for Rosemary. Well, she ignores that half of his face has been blown off. And then she sits down like what I think is cheese, like drying cheese curds out on the table. They sort of look like marshmallows. A lot of the stuff you're like, oh, okay. Then the pale man comes to the car and sees the damage. As Anita gets a few feet away, she starts yelling for Jessica, which is just bloody brilliant. And her dad. I mean, you might as well just tell them that you're 3 steps ahead of them at this point. Back at the old house, the old lady's house, Rosemary comes to the kitchen, and we see Rosemary has no eyes, except for the ones painted on her bandages. The old lady is basically setting him up with Rosemary. And the old lady said, it's with outsiders like yourself that we can get rid of certain peculiarities. It could be worse. She could have flesh that goes on for days off her face. She's not half bad looking, to be honest, other than that, the bandaged eye things are pretty creepy. It could be worse. She got flesh that goes on for days hanging off her face. Yeah. Overall, she's a 10 out of this village. We find out that the children kill outsiders because they are afraid to be taken away. I guess that's one way to stop child services. Then Rosemary gets a little handsy with Robbie. The old woman keeps saying, don't worry, she's of age. She's of age. And you just get this feeling that mom's a pimp. She's like, you go, girl. And Jessica is somehow still alive and tied up to a tree. And a group of children dance around her and whip her with dreaded branches. Back at Rosemary's place, Robbie is passing out as Rosemary explores his hand and wound. He cusses at Rosemary. Mom overhears him and gets cross and plunges a knife through his hand. That will show him. Yeah. Rosemary liked that hand too. So then she apologizes to Rosemary, and Mom goes outside to summon the kids to come and get Robbie for, another round of fun times. And Robbie is trying to dig the knife out from his hand without any success, so instead of trying harder, he rips his hand away from the knife, cutting his hand in 2. And Rosemary decides that she wants to hold hands with Robbie. And he screams in horror as she does. Then Robbie just slugs Rosemary and then runs out of the house. Then Rosemary decides to go aside to catch Robbie. I guess Robbie keeps touching his face. And I'm just like, stop it. Please, just stop. Robbie gets caught by Rosemary and the kids, and we get a kill number 6. I just want to love you. Rosemary kisses her hand and presses it onto his mouth as one of the kids spears him with a stick through his neck. I give that a 3 out of 5. It was okay. Anita and Jessica Anita gets Jessica down from the tree, and then she gets attacked by twins. But Jessica and Anita team up, and we get kill 7 and 8, double trouble. They kill the twins. Anita takes a pitchfork and shoves it into one of the twins' necks, as Jessica takes a scythe. There's always a scythe. No matter if you're out, if there's a barn and there's wilderness, there's a scythe. And she uses it on the back of the other. So she plunges it into his back and rips it down. And this is the point where the movie gets a little artsy. The cameraman gets up and close and personal, and the music is unnerving. And I actually quite like this direction as you're killing the twins, because he really didn't see any blood. He just saw their face is the best way to put it, and the anger that they had. Then we see Rosemary cradling the head of Robbie as the children make a circle around him, and Rosemary starts puncturing out Robbie's eyes as the children weave some branches together. Anita and Jessica make up and apologize, and Jessica asks where their father was. They fill each other in, and then they try to figure where to go next. We see Robbie hanging from his eyes from this stand that they made. And there's nothing like a woman's scorn. Nothing. Then they start throwing things at Robbie's body. I really don't know what the point of the throwing of anything was, other than the show disdain because he was supposed to get with Rosemary. And then Jessica and Anita run into the dark. So they find a few houses and they start screaming, trying to get in and all this other stuff. No one's answering their pleas of help. We see some of the children behind them go into one of the houses. Then we see the car that Molly and Jessica were hiding in the center of the town. But there are no keys. And then they enter what looks to be a church or a house. I'm not quite sure what. And then they decide to split up, which again is why do people always split up in movies? Anita goes upstairs while Jessica finds a set of keys, the little older keys. And she also finds some handy dandy knives, which she practices with her stabbing motion. Anita hears some crying behind a locked door. She is startled by a nurse who tells her to go outside because the psycho kids are better than what the alternative is. Anita enters a door where two men have Jessica captured, and one knocks out Anita, which breaks a glass table. And the two men are talking as one is preparing a very long needle and plunges into Anita's neck. Jessica looks away as he withdraws the blood and puts it into the pregnant nurse's stomach. Which, again, that's not how things work. And then Anita gets up and kills one man as Jessica kills the other, and they take the nurse with them. They get into the car and drive away. Jessica runs over one guy, and then Anita finishes him off with the butcher knife. Nothing like teamwork. At the end of the bridge, because that is the best way to get out, they are met by a group of kids. And then someone changes the underside of the car. And so they try to drive the car, but obviously it doesn't go anywhere. So the girls get out and they chop and slice till they are overtaken. The next morning we see Anita lying under a mobile. And she is in a room with other girls that pretty much look like they've given up or drugged out of their skulls. And they look dead inside. One of them has a baby. That woman tells Anita that they have been trying to cleanse for years with no success, but they will keep trying till they achieve the success. She looks into the crib, and I guess this baby is deformed. You really can't tell. All we know is that these people are somehow deformed genetically. I give this movie a 3 out of 5. Overall, the film was boring. I like bits of it, like some of the camera work, some of the angles, the music choices. The concept is okay. The atmosphere is really what makes the movie work. I sort of want to know more about the deformities and the plague that they have. Some of the looks are just absolutely ludicrous. Like the one chick that has massive excessive skin. It basically hangs down to the center of her chest. The movie jumps all over the place. In the beginning is slow, and towards the end it feels like a mad rush to tell the story. This movie had no real development of the characters or the village. I have no empathy for any of them, or even really understanding what is going on. And another thing, they took something away from the film because it was shot in Connecticut, not in Ireland. I have no idea why it needed to be even set in Ireland. And the fake accents, after a while, start getting annoying. And the other thing, too, is that they're dressed up from, like, I guess, like mid 1800s, early 1900s, and it doesn't make any sense because it was supposed to be 14 years later from 2009, unless, the early 90s he dressed in waistcoats and stuff like that. It just didn't really make any sense. If they're going to make it a period piece, they should have made it a period piece. And then they could have set it in modern time. It sort of had that village vibe, though, towards... So here's some trivia. Although the movie is set in Ireland, it is shot in Connecticut. That's the trivia. So overall, it's a movie. I mean, it's not the greatest. It's not the worst, though. I mean, it's definitely a watch. Like, again, these are another one of those movies where you can sit back with a couple of friends or by yourself or whatever and do like an MST K3000 type thing if you want. I mean, it's just lackluster is the best way to put it. It's mediocre. I gave them for trying. I felt like if they would have had more story throughout, instead of rushing it towards the end, I would have liked it a little bit better. And other than waiting for nightfall, and that was a sort of you lose some things when it's night too, if you don't shoot it well. But overall, I did like that village feel. It didn't make sense for what they were trying to do with the movie. That's the only thing I could think of that I really disliked. Other than being shot in Connecticut. I read that too early when I was watching the movie, and I was like, it ruins a lot of it once you realize it was shot in the U.S. So this one's a little bit shorter than most. Again, Crazy Susie with us. I have 2 more episodes I'm hoping to release, and it'll be by myself. Hopefully next month she'll be feeling better. We'll continue on our thing, our normal way of doing things. If you like just me, I guess, please comment, and maybe we could give Crazy Susie some more rest, and do an episode by myself. Or if you're like, please, just stop. By yourself, then we'll just go back to how we normally do things. To remind you, next month we will be doing independent horror films. We have 2 entries already. We're looking for a 3rd. So if you are or know of an independent horror film that you would like for us to review, please contact us. And the two stipulations, it has to be either be streamable, and we have to have access to that stream content, or you give us a hard copy for free. Those are the two things. We'll be happy to review a film that you send in to us. You can follow us on, you can message us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, or through our email. Alright. I'll scare you later. Bye.